What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of At a Glance, a series in which I give you an appetizer sampler glimpse into a particular faction in 40k. And the goal behind it is to help you decide if you want to look further into the Force on your own, or maybe even start collecting that Force as well. So, up on the chopping block this time by a few viewer requests is going to be the Snakebite Orc clan, one of the big Orc factions in the Codex, and probably one of the ones that's not talked about as much, maybe a little lesser known. The Snakebites are the equivalent of the Orc backwards feral savage, hick style of force. A more primal savage feral force is what the Snakebites are. Um, they probably are a good glimpse into what the Orc society was originally like before encountering the rest of the galaxy. They are savage visually, they are savage in their tactics, they're savage in the way they do things. They are looked down upon by other orc cultures out there, other orc factions, for being so backwards and feral and primitive, if you will. So that's saying something. Now, visually, they may not at first seem too different visually from other orc forces, and the truth is that's going to be up to you. But they do wear a lot of browns, beiges, and tans, a lot of earthly tones. Everything they have is weather worn and not exactly very well kept. They are also weather worn as in terms of their skin and everything else about them. So you could play with that. And when they go to war, they daub themselves in crude mud and war paint. So another thing you could make use of in terms of inspiration for visual and what have you. They do have vehicles. They're not as abundant as they would be in other orc factions, and their vehicles also tend to be earthly tones with some yellows and some greens in there as well. So it's very much a primal force that has some tech, if that makes any sense. They also like to adorn themselves with trophies, skulls, pelts, things of that nature, and their vehicles the same way. They're an interesting lot of orcs because they have the same technological capability and understanding as all the other orc factions out there. They just don't fall madly in love with it and pursue it like the other orc forces do. So sure, they probably have killer cans. They have battle wagons, and they're gonna have trucks, and may even loot some vehicles. But they're not, looking to go faster with a whole bunch of daka 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 like other orcs are. They do it, but it's to a minor degree. And they kind of are wary and skeptical of advanced orc technology. If you're going to find advanced orc technology anywhere in the Snakebites, it's going to be in the hands of the Grots. Even still, their Grots are particularly ferocious. In fact, they may not be really voluntarily tech savvy. They may be voluntarily avoiding tech, which is an interesting concept, which they are doing. But they're also really good at breeding orcoid creatures, squigs, squigots, and they have the most ferocious of grots. So it's an interesting, I guess, kind of trade-off. If you like the whole monster concept of the orcs, the Snakebites got your number. So they do that. They're also adept with poisons. In fact, they're called the Snakebites because that's their big kind of proving yourself ritual. The orc boy goes, finds a really venomous snake, and makes it bite him. Then they suck the poison out to prove their resilience and survive it. If they survive it, great. If not, well, they're not part of the clan and they're dead. So that's another thing they're pretty good with is poisons. In fact, wherever they go, they bring their pet venomous snakes and so forth with them. So you have this kind of primal nomadic force that is the Snakebites. And they have shooters and sluggers and burners and rockets and battle wagons and trucks. They just don't have very much an advanced tech. The zap gun, for example, is probably going to be, with grots if anywhere else. They're going to have runters. They're going to have weird boys. They'll have, standard like shooter style bigger guns, cannons and the like, but they really don't get too sophisticated with their tech when it comes to range weapons. They're gonna have choppers and big choppers, huge choppers, whatever it's called, and they're gonna have, of course, power claws. But maybe they don't have many def dreads. Maybe they don't really have mega armored knobs per se, and so forth. That comes more as your style, how you can get away with it, if quote unquote, and how you feel in terms of collecting them. But in terms of their fluff, they just like to live off the land, move from place to place to find war, and they do it very much in the old ways. Fluff wise, I find them pretty interesting, and I would like to see more done with them to kind of maybe explore why, of all the orcs, the snakebites are the ones that prefer the old ways, that will actually turn down um, advanced technology of the orcs. I think that's worth looking into, and I wish they would do that a bit more. So that's the snake bites in a really brief nutshell. One thing of note is one of their tribes, the Snakebite clan has numerous tribes like the other clans do. One of the tribes in there is the Worm Killers, getting their name from hunting Tyranids. They survived basically a Tyranid infestation on one of their ships, and they got really good at killing the Tyranids, and they fell in love with it. They love hunting Tyranids. To them, that's the best fight. So, they have kind of been driven by that obsession. They seek out worlds attacked by Tyranids, and they let the Tyranids kind of overrun the world before jumping in because they want a good, proper fight. And they've even unleashed Tyranids on planets because while they're not tamed by them at all, Tyranids can't be tamed or controlled in that manner, especially by orcs, who just want a good fight, right? So they're going to basically just have them in a locked room in a hold of a spaceship, and then they're going to go to a planet. They want a good fight. Maybe they don't think there's going to be a good fight there, so they let the Tyranids out. They let some Tyranids loose on the planet, let them grow numerous, basically overrunning the planet, and then they attack it, which I find to be a hilariously dangerous concept that is pretty cool. And given that they like to do trophies and the like and have totemic symbols with trophies and so forth, uh, the worm killers could be a pretty cool force to collect of snake bites because you could do trophies in the form of Tyranid bits and so forth, adorning their vehicles and hanging from their belts, and maybe wearing a Tyranid head as a hat or something like that. Who knows? But there's potential there, and I find that pretty cool for collecting in terms of really kind of gearing them towards a particular trophy style with the worm killers. Outside of that, they are, and even with that, they are still feral, savage, primitive orcs that like to go from place to place. It's a weird kind of almost juxtaposition because on the one hand, they rather have a choppa and a sharpened bone in both their hands and not use their sluggers or shooters and just run at you screaming willy nilly and hacking you to pieces. On the other hand, they use ship travel, interstellar ship travel, and landing craft, if you think about it, to get to the planet's surface, and even in some cases battle wagons and the like to do that. It's a very weird, savage, primitive, feral force with technological capability. And like I said before, they're not unaware of how to deal with technology, they just prefer not to use it. So it's this very weird kind of back and forth with tech and not tech. But they have the capability to use tech like any other orc force, so they're gonna. And in my opinion, I feel some of the more primitive style of weapons, shooters, burners, and rockets, would be something you would see amongst their forces in mass in comparison to other stuff. And with that said, let's look at actually collecting some snake bites. The Orc Codex is going to be the way to go, of course. And there is no supplement for the snake bites. It would be cool if there was to pursue their whole venomous pet thing and primitive ways and so forth. But you could do things akin to that by just self-discipline and building a list. They're orcs, so they're salty, but they're not going to be mechanized perhaps or particularly fast like speed freaks. They're going to be more orc horde style with maybe a vehicle or two in there at most. And I could see the Storm Boys being there. It's fairly primitive tech that way. Um, Slugger Boys and Shooter Boys and all that. Probably not Flash Gits. Probably um, stay away from mechs, big mechs, I should say, with like shock attack guns and the like. Mega armored knobs, maybe not so much. All up to you and how you can stylistically make it work, I guess. Commandos would be fitting for them. So it's an assault list, but stylistically to be in theme, you have to be exercising self discipline, and it could change the list a decent amount from a standard generic orc list to one that's very snakebite themed, and as a result, it can make an orc force that maybe isn't appealing to you as an orc fan as much as Evil Sons may be. So it's different styles there of a similar aggressive concept. So that is one thing to keep in mind. When it comes to collecting the actual models, any of the generic bits and kits from Forge World or GW is going to work fine. Even Age of Sigmar stuff. If you want to get real primitive looking, you want really some savage orcs, you can look at some of the Age of Sigmar greenskin and Berserker stuff for the orcs to really kind of maybe get some bits or make your Weird Boy feel particularly shamanesque or what have you. You could add some stylistic cues from the fantasy line. There's even third-party products out there that are very much geared towards orcs that may or may not work for you in a snakebite situation. You have to do some digging. Um, One of my recommendations would be to really embrace the primitive, savage, feral nature, primal nature that the snakebites have. So maybe in place of metal armor on the shoulder of a orc to represent their heavier armor or what have you, you could have a skull there, or you can have animal hides adorning the orcs, or you could do a little bit of both, column A, column B, some metal and some naturalistic stuff, to really get a sense of their primitive selves. Um, you could have skulls adorning their any limited run of vehicles you have. Maybe even have hides and pelts on that as well. Just things to really stylistically bring out the savage, primitive nature of the snakebites on top of your list building that you did tailored towards their style. Just some food for thought there. And if you go with the worm killers, you can do the same thing with Tyranid bits and heads and so forth, adorning their vehicles or dangling as trophies, or even used as makeshift armor by the snakebites themselves. So, uh, just food for thought on some stylistic ideas to collect snakebites. Uh, I find them interesting and viable to collect with the Orc Codex the way it is. Like I said, they know how to use tech, and they do. They just don't go with the more advanced stuff. So, if you're worried about Orc Boys with a slugger and a chopper or with just a shooter, it's fine. It'll work. It can work, and it fits in with them. I just wouldn't go with crazy zap guns or shock attack guns or things like that personally. Anyways, that's really it for the snake bites. So thanks for sticking through it. I find them pretty interesting. I like the concept of orcs so savage, feral, and primal that even other orc society kind of looks down at them. I find that an interesting concept. Anyways, that's really it. So thanks for sticking through it. Any question, comments, or requests, leave it in the comment section. And until next time, take it easy.